Well, NASCAR is going back to its roots, sort of. The chase returning for 2026. No more eliminations, no more winning in. We'll dive into the format with our full reactions. Plus, Chili Bowl Nationals taking place this week. Larson, Bell, and others on the track. We're going to get into it at the end of the show. The green flag is waving. We're getting into 2026. Motorsports Today starts now. And we welcome you live here on TikTok to episode 217, but episode 1 in 2026 of Motorsports Today, powered by SeatGeek. Use the code MTODAY, all caps one word, for $20 off your first purchase at checkout. Full squad with you: Eddie Kalegi, Adam Tropper, Tim Moore, Tyrell Baker. Reminder, we do our show Monday nights live on TikTok from 7 to 8 p.m. We're live on WRSU.org on Fridays from 12 to 1 p.m. Every episode available YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on the socials at Motorsports Today. Find us on the web at motorsportstoday.net. Happy New Year. It's gone quick. Off season's almost over. The Clash is in less than 3 weeks. The Daytona 500 in just over a month. And NASCAR with groundbreaking news announced today. And we'll run you through it with our pit stop. So NASCAR in a press conference earlier this afternoon. Steve O'Donnell was there, Dale Jr., Mark Martin, Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, and Chase Briscoe to announce that the sport will be bringing back the chase, ending 12 years of elimination-style playoffs. The chase will be points-based only and include the regular season standings. Stages will remain, but no more playoff points for wins and stage wins, and no more winning in. There will still be 16 drivers who qualify for the chase, which still has 10 races in it, and the 16 drivers will be reseeded based on their points earned during the season. Wins now count for more points than they used to, now 55 points. So 20 more points for the winner than second place in each race, and then 10 races in the chase to decide the championship as the elimination era ends, and it will be the chase in the O'Reilly Series and the Truck Series as well, though the O'Reilly Series will only have 12 cars and 9 races, and Trucks will have 10 trucks and 7 races. That's your pit stop. Let's dive into it. And I'll start with this. I know there are some flaws that I will point out, that I know Tim's going to point out, but it's a step in the right direction. When Mark Martin, who has been one of the most vocal critics of NASCAR in recent years, says that this is a big win for the sport, this means that something significantly good has happened for NASCAR, something that needed to happen. We have been saying since the beginning, a lot of us on here, that full season points, not only is it not very feasible at this point in time, but a really good system that NASCAR had when NASCAR was very popular through the 2000s, the early 2010s, was the chase, because it was that happy medium between having the full season points but still having those clutch moments in the playoffs, and you're going to accomplish that. And again, between the lawsuit and the pivots and some of the other changes that NASCAR has made in the last few months, I think this is another step in the right direction for the sport to continue moving forward, not only to try to get more fans interested, but to bring a lot of the fans that they've lost back. Tropper, your initial impressions of the chase being announced to return?
Yeah, I mean, I've said many times on the show throughout 2025 and probably even earlier, but since these rumors have begun that there was going to be a format change, that the chase was my favorite version. Maybe I'm a little biased because that's kind of how we grew up on it, but I truly thought it was that happy medium. As you said, Eddie, it's the best compromise that there was. 1 points reset and then let them duke it out for 10 races. And I am so happy it's back, because also now with the next gen car too, parity is the name of the game. And that's changed a little bit now. At probably the last season or two, we've kind of seen the best teams show why they're the best teams. But at the same time, anyone can win. The points battles, like we always say, are so interesting, but the elimination playoffs, that is, completely diminished anything interesting about it. Like I see these Winston Cup points formats, and that's obviously not what we're getting, but you see how close the competition is. But the playoffs, you don't even know what's going on. So, but you know what? 2026, new year, maybe less ranting about playoffs because it's officially in the past. We got the chase back. Like I said, I am so happy. only gripe, and I imagine we'll get into critiques later on, but my only concern is maybe the way that the points will be reseeded, because it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like first through 16th, and depending where you are in regular season standings, you're just put in that specific box in terms of how many points you're getting reset. I'm a little surprised it's not like an extra 5 or 10 bonus points per win, because I would think that if you're trying to emphasize winning still, give the bonus points. And maybe that's just something that the old Chase had that threw me off, and I'm a little, not even concerned, but a little confused why it doesn't have it. But overall, I mean, once again, this is the best happy medium you're going to get. This is the best compromise you're going to get. I'm fine with not having full season points because the points still matter here. One reset, make it entertaining. If that's what sponsors and media want, like all the TV deals, if this is the way to go, I am still thrilled, because the elimination format, goodbye and good riddance.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. We were both there at Phoenix, and there was way too much controversy and heartbreak between Zilich and Denny Hamlin in two completely different forms. You had a driver who deserved to win the championship based on his full season, have it stripped from him because of the format. And then the next day, you have a driver who honestly deserved to win the championship, and Kyle Larson. He would have won in any format. He was the best driver all year, but it still feels bad because of the way that it went and the fact that it came down to an overtime finish because his teammate wrecked to determine the champion and have it stripped from Denny Hamlin, which is why so many people felt so bad for Hamlin, who for so long had been like the enemy of all the fans. So simply put there, Tim, we'll get into the gripes we have in a moment, because I know you and I have a lot of the same ones. But as someone who, of course, also grew up watching the sport through the early days of the chase, not just for nostalgia's sake, but I just think for competitiveness sake, this is definitely a positive step for NASCAR.
Oh, without a doubt. And I mean, even if, let's say, NASCAR went the route of, what I proposed of cutting it in half, right? Doing 5 and 5 to decide, let's say a championship 6 or a championship 8. I would have been fine with that as long as the window opened up. But in my opinion, some of the sport's greatest battles for a championship have happened in the chase era. And I know people may disagree with me, but again, I sit here and I still argue to a T to this point that Tony Stewart, Carl Edwards was arguably, if not the greatest championship battle the sport has ever seen. And yeah, I know there's a lot of people say, well, Tony Stewart didn't deserve to be a champion. He had a bad regular season and so on, but he had a magical postseason run. And maybe, you know what, a little bit that's because I'm a New York Giants fan, right, Eddie? And I've seen 2 magical Super Bowl runs, including beating an undefeated New England Patriots to win a Super Bowl. But my point is that you have to come up clutch when it matters. And the reason why I'm not for a 36 race format, unlike a lot of older people, is because I think that some races need to have more value than others. And to have the chase format, that's 10 of the most important races throughout the season. And it doesn't mean the other 26 aren't pointless, because based on this system, you have to accumulate enough points to be in the top 16 to have value to make the playoffs. The only other thing we were valuing prior to this, until we got to the playoffs, was simply winning, because the odds of you making the playoffs without winning was pretty much minimal to none. So you had to get something that represented consistency. And this format, in my opinion, now granted, maybe the format I would have wanted to go with, for the record, would have been top 10 in points, then your 2 wild cards like we had previously. That's not the case, and I know a lot of people are complaining that we have 16. I think that'll change over time. I think 16 is a good baseline to start right now, but it's good to have the chase back. This is how you should properly, in my opinion, determine a champion, and it's going to be exciting for 2026, because the only thing, and again, I know we're going to talk about gripes in a little bit, the only thing that you have to really consider when you look at this is there's no playoff points anymore. Yes, the points total increases, you get rewarded for wins and so on, but your window is your window from start to finish, in terms of what it'll be when we start the chase. You have an ideal point total of what we're going to see for every driver, no matter what. So my thing is, if you are 12th to or 13th to 16th, I should say, through the points, you kind of don't really have a shot to begin with, which kind of stinks. But I think NASCAR took that into consideration, is just more my point in making this format. Because 100 points, for example, 16th, I mean, it's hard alone to make up 50 points in 5 races. So to do 110, like that's going to be really, really difficult. But I think NASCAR did that for a reason. And again, I think this is huge for the sport. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is a significant change for a positive thing. And for an off season where we did not have a lot of positive things to talk about in this sport, this is a step in the right direction that needed to be done. And it's big, and it's going to be a pivotal moment, I think, for what the future, what the sport represents, not just over the next 10 years, I would say over the next 30 to 40, because I don't think you can make a better format than what this presents, in my opinion. Not like in terms of the idea of it, not how the format physically is, because you could adjust and change, but this format is the best thing NASCAR has ever designed, in my opinion.
TCB, your thoughts?
I totally agree with you guys. I'm so happy the Chase is back. Obviously, I grew up watching the Chase, and I also remember the regular season points standings back 2003. Matt Kenseth won just Vegas and then basically camped 10th place all year. And then it was like, oh, it's over. Yep. Kenseth won with like 2 or 3 races left. And I mean, honestly, as much as I would like to kind of see that come back, I just knew that like we would be careful what we're wishing for, because then let's say Denny Hamlin wins like the Daytona 500, camps 10th place the whole season, and then wins the championship with 3 races to go. Everybody would complain, be like, oh my God, this sucks. We need the Chase. We need this. We need that. No matter what, I'm personally happy that it's back. I'm not going to say it's 100% perfect. I kind of was hoping they would lessen the field, maybe 12 or even 10, but I'm still happy with 16. And I am kind of like on the side of Tim, like 16th place only being like 100 points back is like insane. I don't see how they're going to gain that unless they have like a Tony Stewart type of run back in 2011 where they win 5 out of 10 or something, and then they get top 10s the whole time. But I love it. Like I said, or like you guys all said, great step in the right direction for NASCAR. And there's not been a lot of good news from NASCAR, but this is great. And I hope that we keep going down this road and making great decisions.
Yeah. Now let's get into the technicalities of this that, could be challenging. And again, this is form number 1. And if there are things that don't work, the fact that NASCAR was willing to make this drastic of a change, especially with winning not really meaning much at all anymore after everything was about winning races for the last decade plus, makes me think that they are willing to fine-tune this and make changes on a year-to-year basis, just like they did at the beginning of the playoffs. The playoffs in 2014 looked very different a few years later. The names of the rounds, the trucks and Xfinity suddenly had playoffs too. Of course, even the chase changed with how they ended up seating the drivers after the first 4 years. So I do think there will be amendments down the line, and the fact that you have a brain trust with Dale Jr. and Mark Martin clearly involved in the decision-making too, I think is going to help things out. But everybody's bringing up this point about the 16 drivers being involved. Frankly, first of all, I understand the logic for why that's the case for multiple reasons. Number 1, there are a lot of sponsorship ties and bonuses that are in place still with sponsors for a sport that is having trouble keeping sponsors that are based on, getting these additional rewards for drivers and bonuses if they make the playoffs. And the playoffs have been the top 16. Less incentives if there's less spots, and it becomes more messy for these sponsors that have contracts with the current charter agreement. So I think that's kind of a barrier that they couldn't overcome, number 1. And number 2, I'm not defending it because I hate it. The NBA shouldn't have the play-in tournament. The NFL has way too many teams in the playoffs. I'm sorry, it should be 6, not 7. I did not mean to do a 6-7 there, but still, it should be 6 teams per conference. Baseball has way too many teams in the playoffs right now. It's completely ridiculous. College football keeps expanding. The World Cup has 48 teams in it this coming year. Every single sport that has a postseason, it seems, has too many teams involved. And NASCAR is simply following that. All these other sports have around 45-50% of the competing teams in the playoffs, and NASCAR is doing that. And I don't have too much of a problem with it, especially with the way the points are seeded, that it's going to be difficult for that driver in 16th place to get there. I'm not saying it's impossible, because now with the wins, you can get 55 points, not to mention stages, you can gain up to 76 points in a race. So it's certainly possible, but I do think in terms of the elite of the elite, I would have liked only 10 or 12 drivers, because now we're going to be really paying attention to, the middle of the pack, these last few races of the regular season, which, isn't as exciting. But I don't have too much of a problem with that. Honestly, I really like it. I think this is the kind of the best way they could have done this. And just with the barriers they had and the fact that every other sport has so many competitors in their postseasons, I don't have that much of a gripe with the 16. But Tim, I know you have a couple of complaints that now that you've had some time to think on this since the announcement.
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, I think the biggest gripe I have about it, outside of the points gap difference, I mean, one thing that NASCAR didn't, I feel like, consider, and I hope they do during these next couple weeks, figure it out. I mean, you have to live under a rock to just, for example, believe that every single driver is going to make every single race of the season for the next 20, 10, 20 years. The reason why I'm saying is this. In the playoff format, I mean, think about it. How many times did we see a driver miss, for a concussion or miss for an injury, right?
You were on before that, so.
Yeah, I don't know what. 1 second. That is quite odd.
Well, I hear you. Loud and clear.
Yeah, but the TikTok does not hear me for some reason. There we go. Okay, we'll try that again, TikTok. I apologize. So let's try this again. I don't know why it muted my mic on my end. Apologize for that, folks. They let me know in the comment section they can't hear me while I'm going, so I apologize. So what I was saying was this, is that, I feel that NASCAR perhaps didn't properly account for just a couple things. I'll give you this example. Was it 2015 was Kyle Busch's first championship, right?
Yep.
Does Kyle Busch's championship happen in this format? The answer is no, right? Now, you may not like that Kyle Busch won the championship, and listen, I agree, right? You'd say he probably shouldn't have been playoff eligible, but let's imagine he was 16th in points at the end of that season, and he had so many wins. Kyle Busch wouldn't have won that championship, finishing 16th in points. This is the point I'm going to make. You have to live, to me, under a rock to think that certain drivers, right, are going to race every race throughout the year perfectly and be perfectly healthy. I mean, we've seen drivers, for example, miss because they've had children. We've seen drivers miss because they've had concussions or injuries. My point is this, is that I worry, and it's the only thing I worry about this format, is you don't have a proper subsystem. I worry that drivers are going to race hurt because missing 3 or 4 races, let's say for a severe injury, like Brad Keselowski, right? Granted, it's not in a race car, hurts his leg, right? He misses the first 4 races of this season. He pretty much can kiss out the top 16 if he doesn't come right back winning constantly right away because he's taking 0 spots. So my point is, how would you feel if you're a driver? Like, let's take Denny Hamlin, for example. Let's say Denny Hamlin goes on, he wins 7 races in the regular season this year. But all of a sudden, Denny Hamlin has another back injury. And next thing you know, he's out for 5, 6 races. And he finishes 13th, 14th in points. Denny Hamlin won 7 races. He was competing for the regular season title. He's back for the playoffs, but he's going to start with over 100 or an 80-plus point deficit. Let's say if he's 14th to the points lead. I don't exactly think that's fair, and that's my gripe to it.
I listen. I just need to interject here. I agree with that to an extent. But let's not forget that before 2014, you were bleep out of luck if you got hurt.
Yes, but that is true. But Jimmy Johnson was dominating the series, and certain cars were dominating the series. We've had how many? We've had what? 13, 14, 15? What is it? How many different winners did we even have last year? You lose count at some point. My point is there's so many different winners now. It's not just one person entirely dominating the sport to a stronger degree. I mean, you're not seeing what we saw in 2020, for example, out of Kevin Harvick or Denny Hamlin. You're seeing the sport get spread out. And the other thing, too, all the way to back then, the point system was different. I mean, yes, you mentioned if you miss a race, right, in that old point system, you're definitely in trouble. But the system didn't account for the playoffs and what it, provided then. So again, I'm not saying the playoff system was great, but one of the things that was great about it was it rewarded winning to a degree. I'm all for rewarding winning to points. But if you won and you had an injury, let's say, your season may not fully be impacted upon that. Denny Hamlin, again, I keep on bringing up the example because I know years ago, right? He had a back injury and so on at Auto Club with his incident with Logano. If he goes on, has a great year and has to step back for something for personal reasons, right? Or let's say he can't make the start of the year because of personal reasons. Should he be punished if he has a great regular season and not get a standings result because he couldn't catch up enough? Like that's the one issue.
But like, listen, and I empathize with any driver, especially what Denny Hamlin's had to go through over the last few weeks, because that's terrible, and you don't want that to happen to anyone. But, I mean, any other sports, there's not amendments being made for teams
for
that
example,
are missing guys because of injury, especially when most of the injuries at this point are happening off the racetrack.
Yeah, but other sports, it's team versus team, and I guess you could say that about NASCAR, but the difference is when you go into football, right, or you go into basketball, even though the odds may sway and there's favorites, you have a 50-50 shot of winning every time you enter a game. You start at an even slate. In NASCAR, yeah, everybody, I guess you could say, starts at a race even slate, but they start in a different grid position and so on. And the point is that you're racing against 16 others for a championship. Whereas other sports, it's one team, one driver, right? So I'm just saying it like this. How you can't reward playoff points for wins is concerning to me. I think they needed to have had playoff points because there's going to be a scenario where something happens over due time. And it may not be this year, but it is ridiculous to me that somebody could theoretically win 26 races and only start 25 points ahead of second entering the playoffs. I mean, think about it like that.
Yeah, no, that's valid. I agree with that.
But I'm saying if a driver has a great regular season and they get hurt, now they're starting in a 100-point gap to open up the playoffs. So let's say they finish 16th.
But for the first 60 years of the sport, that's what would happen. If you were hurt for a few races,
that's the format. But they played a 36-race format. NASCAR didn't have injury waivers back then because they didn't have a playoff back then. NASCAR made injury waivers after they made the playoff system.
Right, so exactly. I feel like the playoffs kind of gave drivers an opportunity to miss races, right? Yes. Like Denny Hamlin missed Mexico because he had his kid, right? So it was just kind of like, hey, I have a win already. I'm just going to miss this week and just have my baby be born. So, and I totally understand what you're saying, Tim. Like, I totally agree. If Denny wins 26 races, he should have more than 25 points going to it. I totally agree with that.
But my thing is just, again, it's all based on standings. And that's all I'm saying. There should be more that accounts to it. Listen, if you don't want to give the stage point bonus point, I'm all for that, but then take away stages, right? They're going to keep stages, at least for right now. So, but those points outside of scoring points don't actually matter towards benefiting your playoffs anymore. The race wins, though, should. They give them 55 points out for a win compared to 40. That's 20 over second. That's great that points-wise that matters. But entering the playoffs, if you're just giving them a set amount of gap, like, you just, I don't know. It doesn't do it for me is all I'm saying.
I actually agree to that extent, because that's what I mentioned at the top of the show with my issue with the seeding, because maybe it could also be, and I'll admit this, maybe I'm trying to compare to the original chase format too much, and maybe we're comparing apples and oranges mistakenly. But at the same time, I see top 10 in points. You get wins. What was it? 5 extra bonus points per win, something like that, with how they did in 2011, 2012, and then 2 wild cards, 4 wins. And that was the win and you're in. If you weren't consistent enough, like I'm trying to think of a good example of it, but I remember just playing, for example, this is a very bad one, but NASCAR Inside Line 2012. You get a lot of weird winners in the CPU in the game. I think it was like Marcos Ambrose or something, or maybe that actually happened in real life too when he won Watkins Glen in 2012. Was he in the top 20 in points? If he was, he would have been given a chase spot, that last wild card. So I feel like there could have been more safeguards to allow that to happen, but I just not sure how, without any ever bonus points, it's a 100-point gap between first and 16 sits with me.
I just got to say a couple things. Number one, I mean, Max Verstappen erased that gap in a sport that has less than half the points per race in less than 10 races. So let me just say that.
If you're talking Tony Stewart 2011, you could get this magical run. It's not impossible, like you said.
But hold on, I gotta argue that, Eddie, real quick. I have to argue that because yes, Max Verstappen erased his miraculous gap, but the points gap difference is drastically different from NASCAR to F1. Like, it is
Yeah,
hard. Like,
100's a 4-race gap in F1. It's barely 2 in
okay,
NASCAR.
but F1, where it's like, if you win, what's the margin a second? Think about it.
7 points.
7 points.
Yes, and I understand now it's 20 for NASCAR, but there's significantly less cars on the grid in F1 than there are in NASCAR. 1 point from start to finish, from second and on, makes a small difference as compared to what it would in F1.
That's
because
about-
you have to remember, F1 stops scoring points come a certain position. So only a certain number of cars score points. Every car scores points in NASCAR.
Well, if
So,
anything,
like,
doesn't this validate the point of stages even more? Saying like if you actually can perform throughout the race and maximize the stage points, even without playoff points.
yeah,
so,
no,
like,
no. Like, the stage point concept is great. I'm just saying winning stages, for example, don't reward you anymore. Winning races don't reward you. And again, I for example, somebody in comment sections goes, I have a valid point, but I think if you miss for any reason, you shouldn't be a champion. I don't disagree that if you miss a bunch of races, for example, Kyle Busch, what is it? He had to get in the top 30. Tony Stewart had to get in the top 30 to become playoff eligible. I don't disagree from that extent. But if you have such a great season and then you have to make a bad decision for your health or so on because I have to be top 16 to make the playoffs, it's concerning. That's all I'm saying. It's concerning. I wish they have a subsystem or something that they can just put into so that these drivers aren't risking themselves is all. And that wins get, again, they get factored into a little bit because
the closest comparison possible would have been that Denny Hamlin Auto Club crash in 2013. And I'm just thinking hypothetically here. He didn't win in that regular season. He almost had a winless season until he won at Homestead. It was not a good year. Maybe he rushed back from a back injury. But hypothetically, if Denny Hamlin had a Kyle Busch type 2015 run and was just absolutely goated the rest of the year coming back from injury, would we be having that discussion? He missed, 5 races that season? If he would have ended up being the champion, would have there been a problem with him missing races, I guess? Because I'm just trying to avoid a double standard being here.
I just feel like there's no need to be safeguarding drivers who get hurt off the track. I'm sorry. It's
no, but off the track. But I mean, you have to live under a rock to think it can't happen on the track.
No,
Just happened to Connor Zillage last year, twice.
I mean,
Well, technically, one wasn't on the track, but you get what I mean. It happened twice last year, and it's gonna happen more. It's been happening more and more. Just because drivers aren't dying doesn't mean they're not getting hurt. That's the thing. Like, it happens.
Okay. I think what I can attest to from what you're saying, Tim, and Tyrell, I'm curious your thoughts. I don't have as much of a big deal with the 100-point gap because, listen, if we're all four making points and the whole season matter, it shouldn't be that easy for the 16th best driver the first 70% of the year to win the championship. But I do see your point that first and second should be a bigger gap because, frankly, if you do the math, a driver can win both stages and sweep the stages and the race in the first chase race, and the guy who is the points leader finishes second in both stages in the race, and he loses the points lead immediately, and he could have had a 200-point lead. So that's where I'll give you your point on that. And Tyrell, I want to let you chime in your thoughts on that.
I agree with that. I kind of want to go back to one of Tim's points again, where he said, if a driver does miss a race, I mean, it's kind of like Eddie, how you said for 60 years, right? It's been like this. Like if a driver missed a race, oh well, like too bad. And unfortunately, it's going to happen. Like you said, Tim, I totally agree with you. On the track, all the track, it's going to happen. Unfortunately, yes, I do feel like they do need some kind of substitute system or something, maybe, right? To where whenever Denny Hamlin got injured, Mark Martin raced, and maybe he gets some points or something. But as of now, it's not going to happen. And it's like, it's more of like just like the old way. You got to make sure you're on your P's and Q's, right? Like I get it. You can definitely have fun, right? Chase Elliott could go skiing. Brad Keselowski could go skiing, do whatever, right? But if you get injured, tough noogies, man. Like it sucks. It really sucks. But it's just how it is. And if you think of it this way, right? Football. The Indianapolis Colts started off red hot, right? And of course, we had our old quarterback there, Mr. Danny Jones, crazy out there, right? Tears his ACL, Achilles, or something like that, right? Done for the season. The team has just plummeted. They're completely out of the playoffs. That's sports, man. That's just how it goes, you know? Like you have the best the driver or the best player on your team goes out and then the rest of the team or whatever the case may be can't hold it up, then you're out, you know? And it sucks. It really
Right,
does, but
but
it's sports.
but my thing is just more the comparison again of like you mentioned the Colts. Well, imagine the Colts made the playoffs again. We're talking about sports that start from an even slate. Like if Denny Hamlin, again, and I know I keep bringing up, Denny Hamlin won 7 races in a regular season. And he gets hurt, let's say, and he's coming back, and he finished 16th in the points, but he spent the entire season inside the top 5 in points. Denny Hamlin won 7 races, but it doesn't matter because he's going to start in a 100-point gap to the points lead because none of those 7 races he won matters. See, it's like, again, I don't care for the winning you're in. I just care about rewarding the win. That's my thing. Like the wins need to have still more value, in my opinion. And another thing, because I don't want to go off road on the topic here, but another thing that does concern me, maybe grinds my gears a little bit, because last year we brought back the fastest lap point. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. I understand that. But why are we not rewarding most lap sled and lap sled now if you're coming back to this system? Because to me, that should have, not a big value, but a tiny value, at least added on to it. Because it would make the concept better and make the points battle better. All that is what made NASCAR back then, especially when I was a kid, great because you wanted to see teams try to incentivize getting to the front, getting that tiny TV time. I feel, for example, Daytona, what is the goal of getting to the lead outside of the stage ends until the final lap, right? You're going to sit there and save gas. There's no incentive. But if these guys want to go get a lap lead, well, they get points for that. They may now go out there and say, hey, I want to control this race for a tiny bit, try to get most laps, get those points because they add up over time.
I agree with that. Because I know NASCAR's standpoint is, we're encouraging racing throughout the race because of the stages. But you brought up a prime example. All 6 super speedway races, besides the final 2 laps of each stage, the rest of it feels like doesn't really matter, especially since you can make your way through the field so easily. So I think that's a valid point. But I want to kind of tie a bow on this with another angle here because a lot of people are talking about the specifics of the format. But something interesting in NASCAR this year is and nobody's talking about this, there was the least turnover in the Cup Series with the driver roster of any season I can remember. 34 of the 36 full-time cars have the same driver pairing with the team and the car and everything. Only changes are that Zilich replaced Suarez and Suarez replaced Haley and SVG's got a new number. That's it. So everybody who was competing last year is back this year and the car hasn't changed. The only thing that's changed is the format. So the real question now is which drivers are going to be helped the most by this and hurt the most by this. And I really thought about this before I came on here. And I'm going to give you guys 4 in each category that I have ranked here. So the 4 drivers that I think are going to benefit most from this change from the playoffs to the chase. Number 1, no-brainer, Chris Buescher. He's been a top 10 driver who just can't win the last 2 years. And this will allow him probably to make the chase unless something crazy happens and RFK is bad this year. That's the number 1 guy to me. Number 2, Chase Elliott would make it anyway, but you know how good he is at being consistent. He wins races from time to time, and that 55-point bonus will be nice, but Chase Elliott was so consistent last year, always in the top 20. His only 2 DNFs were when he got taken out at Richmond and taken out at Talladega. So I think Chase Elliott, this will give him a much more fighting shot to win a second championship. Then Alex Bowman, and then Kyle Busch. 2 other guys who, frankly, have scored a decent amount of points and I think will fare better. Obviously, Bowman is in a better position right now than Kyle Busch, but 2 guys that I think will fare better under this format where they're not the pressure to win and rather there's the pressure to run well. Both of them can do that. On the flip side, 4 guys that are hurt the most by this. Number 1 is obvious. It's Shane Van Gisbergen. Could he get better at ovals enough to become top 16 eventually? Yes. Do I think that's going to happen in 2026? No. Work's going to need to be done for SVG. So that's number 1 for me that gets hurt by this. Number 2, Austin Dillon. He doesn't have his free win at Richmond. Even when he won Richmond the first time, he didn't even get into the playoffs from that. So Austin Dillon is going to become irrelevant in the Cup Series. If he wasn't already irrelevant, he is now. 3rd driver that's hurt by this, I think Connor Zilisch, because I think Connor Zilisch could have made the playoffs as a rookie, beating SVG at a road course. I don't know if as good as he was in Xfinity last year, it is so tough to perform as a rookie. And I don't know if he's going to get to top 16. He certainly could, but it's going to be a lot more difficult now for him to make the playoffs. And the fourth driver, I'll say Carson Hocevar. He could take another leap this year from last year, where he had some races where he was fast, but he was so volatile between the incidents with the drivers and races that just went south after he was fast at the start of the race, which was a problem for Spire across the board. You need consistency to run well in this, and Hocevar, maybe he'll get his first win this year. But you know what? That doesn't matter. Now it's about consistency. So those are my four guys that I think could get hurt by this. Tropper, I'll go to you first. What drivers stand out to you the most that are their performance now is going to be changed one way or another by this format?
I'll try not to repeat you too much, but there's one glaring one that I think is going to be helped more than you would expect, because he would probably do well anyway. But Christopher Bell, because for me, you, and Tim, we all had him as our 2025 championship pick last February. You had him picked the last 3 seasons, Eddie. And that's because of the way he's able to win, but also consistency. And maybe the first half of 2025, you didn't see that as much from him. But if you look at, like I said, those hypothetical Winston point standings, Christopher Bell is usually at the top, or at least top 3 in that level of consistent performance and being able to put results together to at least keep him in the points hunt. Like when you look at regular season championship points, even in the no other changes with the points format, just how it was the last 2-3 seasons, he was usually top 3. And same goes for Tyler Reddick. I feel like he is coming off of a winless season. I do think he's going to win in 2026, but that's another example where top 10s, that will help him a lot more than it would have under previous format, where he almost just got bumped out of the playoffs if there would have been 2 more winners last year. Yeah. And then on the flip side, I'm trying to think. I think he covered really all the guys that would be hurt the most by it. Maybe, I don't know. I might be out of luck. Maybe Austin Cindric.
I got one for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to say your 2, well, I guess if you want to count SVG in this category, your 3 road ringers, SVG, AJ Allmendinger, and Michael McDowell. I'm just going to say it. I mean, McDowell has had the more potential to win in super speedway, of course, as well. But those guys can win 2-3 races, let's say, if they're lucky. And they're just not going to make the playoffs because they're not good enough to be in the top 20. Though McDowell had a good year for most of the regular season last year, and AJ was in the mix, but they're not top 16 teams, let's be honest.
Yeah, but I think it's funny because I almost feel like this helps McDowell and Allmendinger, because right now with SVG and plus adding Connor Zilisch, I don't see a world where someone is winning a road course.
Yeah, but do you see Kalegi having a good year this year? Because I don't. I don't see it in the Cup Series.
No, I don't. I think Allmendinger, I agree with you. I think Michael McDowell can have his moments kind of like Hocevar. So I think this is kind of indifferent for McDowell. And I mean, let's not forget too, if he didn't throw that one of the worst blocks I've ever seen at Texas last year, he could have won a Cup race on a 1.5 miles.
Well, he threw one of the worst blocks, then he wrecked himself on top of it too. After losing, it was like,
I know who this hurts the most. I can't believe I forgot. Cole Custer and Cody Ware. They can't miraculously find a way to win an in anymore.
I mean, that's true. What is Cody Ware's purpose anymore?
I do want to say, Eddie, by the way, too. I think it's very fair that you can categorize like one of them like into a whole for who this is going to benefit. I just think it's Hendrick Motorsports as a whole. Because, of course, you mentioned Chase Elliott, you mentioned Alex Bowman, who I consider to be a better points driver than a winning driver. But William Byron and Kyle Larson can't go underlooked, right? If you base it last year, Kyle Larson was the overall champion on points based on this points format, if you want to compare it to the Winston, right? And William Byron, listen, whether you like him or not, however you feel about his wins, he's a competitor for the regular season title every single season. So those guys are obviously going to be, again, competitive again going into this year. But, like, I just think that you have to consider Hendrick as a whole could benefit from this. And I guess you could say maybe who gets hurt a little bit by this. I don't think it's the case for Ryan Blaney, because I think Blaney's going to have a good step up here this year. Because it felt like, again, last year they were making so many strides with passing and everything, and I think he's starting to get it, but it's going to hurt Joey Logano. I mean, I feel like everybody talks about the media, but this format will potentially hurt Joey Logano because he's just not a good regular season driver. He gets a couple wins, he makes the playoffs, but if it's going to be based off your point standings on what your deficit is, and you're not starting from a somewhat even slate, and your wins aren't going to be rewarded, I don't see how Joey Logano could win a championship in this format. I'm just going to
I'm actually
say.
going to have to disagree with you, and this is because of Eddie. You told me this before we went on the
Yes,
air, but
yes. Let me hit it. The tweet
yes.
of the day. Daniel Cespedes, who's you got to follow that account if you're a NASCAR fan. He does better analytics than the NASCAR Insights official account. He already calculated the championships since 2001 under this format. Would you believe Joey Logano would actually have more championships than in reality? He would be a 4-time champion. He would have
What year?
2014, 15,
Okay.
16, and then 2022 because he had such good 10-race stretches and he was top 5 in points.
What if Chase Elliott still won the 2020 title? I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
Because he had the best average finish, and then Bowman would have been that mix too. But we don't talk about that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
My dispute with Penske,
Who won the 15 title? Who would have won the 15? Do you remember?
I just said Joey Logano.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I thought you said 16.
Yeah, no,
okay,
keep
I got you.
repeated. Jimmy Johnson's still a 7-time champion, by the way, in that format, though his championships would be some different years.
Hey, you know, it's fantasy, by the way, because Logano won a championship on an odd year. That's just not allowed.
I know.
That's what I was going to say. Does this mean the even year streak is officially over? Are we cooked for Joey Logano this year?
Boy, just wait till the end of this year. We spoke too soon.
I know. My thought is, I feel like from Penske's standpoint, historically, they seem to be the best at adjusting their strategy and their craft to the format and the cards that they are dealt. Prime example of that was Joey Logano advancing to the round of 8 this past season with Ross Chastain, where they knew they had a bad car, and Paul Wolfe played the strategy to perfection. And you think back to the very end of the Chase era and even the beginning of the playoff era, like from 11 to 15, yes, that was Brad Keselowski's prime. Brad Keselowski was like the best point scorer in the Cup Series besides maybe Jeff Gordon, Kevin Harvick during that span. I feel like Penske as a team might be able to adjust to this a little bit, which is why I didn't put Logano on that list. But obviously, for the memes, you got to consider Logano. But Tyrell, one more group I want to talk about is the Toyota camp, because I agree that I think it'll help Christopher Bell. I do think it will help Ty Gibbs to an extent, because at least the way his career has gone, I think it's much easier for him to finish 16th in points than to win a race. And the only competition that NASCAR has had in the last decade based solely on finishing position, he won the in-season tournament last year. So worth noting. But how do you think 23-11 plays into this? Because, I mean, Reddick scored all those points, then he couldn't win last year. Bubba Wallace did get his win last season, but has been more of a point scorer. I don't really know whether this helps them or hurts them.
I totally agree. I see Reddick obviously getting in. I think Reddick, if I were to throw a number out, he'd probably be like 6th or something in regular season. Bubba, I see him definitely lower in the maybe like last one in or like 10th place, unless they have just this huge breakout season early on and they just stay consistent. But you know, one thing with 23-11 is they just seem like they just have a lot of DNFs overall. Reddick, I mean, well, not really so much Reddick. It's more Bubba Wallace that just has a lot of the DNFs, unfortunately. But yeah, I do feel like they're both going to get in, and unfortunately, we're missing out on the third car of Riley Herbst. But sorry, Riley. But yeah, within the 2-car team there, I think they're both going to get in. And Ty Gibbs, I do feel like Ty Gibbs honestly will get in too. I think he'll squeak in 16th. If not, he'll be the first one looking in. And I just feel like the rest of Joe Gibbs obviously is all going to get in. It wouldn't surprise me. Chase Briscoe's the regular season champion, and then you know, the top 3 are all just Joe Gibbs, honestly. But Ty Gibbs is really going to have to try to step it up this year. And I kind of saw it like midway through the season last year, right? Like, I believe was it Richmond? I believe. I don't remember what track it was. He was leading a bunch of laps, and it was like, sorry, Bristol. He was about to win Bristol, and then he had the tire issues and all that happened. And I thought it was actually going to happen. I thought he was going to win the race. Yes, the playoffs had already started by that point. But that really showed big improvement to me. And I was like, okay, maybe he's going to take a step up. And then the last 5 races, you didn't see him. But hopefully for Ty Gibbs, he hopefully gets in. But I think for Toyota overall, I think all but 2 of them may get in.
Yeah.
I just want to say a message from the chat real quick. Kipton Dunn said that he thinks the guy it hurts the most is SVG. The one guy for sure it helps is Bell. And he also said that it also hurts Austin Cindric because the analysis of him keeping a ride And I'm actually slightly inaccurately paraphrasing this, but basically he said his 1 win a year won't cut it. But I'm adding on to the fact that the whole reason why Austin Cindric has a cup ride is because yes, he has the wins, right? But the points results don't exactly look like that. It's going to be hard to debate him staying with Penske in the future now because he's not a guaranteed lock for the playoff. There needs to be more to that than a 20th place points result every season.
Yeah, I'm glad that Kipton brought that up, and thanks to everybody watching live on TikTok, by the way, and interacting. Yeah, Cindric is in a weird spot because I know we haven't had a show in almost a month. I really thought there was a chance that we would get like the Nick Sanchez situation, and all of a sudden we get a tweet one morning that Austin Cindric's out of his ride. Because, I mean, Tim Cindric's gone. He got fired for the whole IndyCar fiasco with the attenuator. So there's nothing really drawing him to the car anymore. And yes, this hurts his chances even more because he does not score a lot of points. He can win a race once in a while. So that's a good point. Cindric, I think, to the same logic as some of the other guys I talked about, that this hurts. I don't know where he currently stands going forward, and I don't know if this is really going to help him out.
I got a question for
Contract
you.
year for him? Is
What's
this a
up, Rob?
contract year?
I don't know. It's,
Well, so
it
for
could be an
Cindric,
break.
yeah.
should be. I think it's two of the bigger free agents because I think Byron signed his extension already.
Yeah.
So then I think it's Bowman and Cindric would lead the free agent class this year, if I remember
Maybe they're
correctly.
waiting it out, giving him one more chance to see what he can do.
Well, the whole thing is, well, then who do they put in the car? Because Penske obviously doesn't have like a pipeline or anything like
Well,
that. Xfinity.
well, I'll say
I
Hold on, I might be wrong here.
I can see a world where they take. Hear me out. They do the Wood Brothers switch. They take Josh Berry, and then the Wood Brothers, and they can do what they want.
Yeah.
I got a question, Eddie, because I hear this noise in my head, and maybe it's my headphones. Do you have something in your hands right now?
I do. You know what?
Yeah, I hear it.
It's a great segue because you know what it is. We're starting a new thing in 2026. We're doing our Diecast of the Week powered by SeatGeek. And I wanted to show this one off to start. This is a 1999, I believe, John Deere Roush Racing Ford driven by Chad Little, who was pretty bad, but you can see the inside of the car. They have a hood that opens, and this is like the only 164 diecast I have that's like this. It's very bashed up. So the backstory, this is the second ever diecast I ever got. I got it in first grade. I don't know how I got the opportunity, but I got to pick a prize from the treasure chest in my first grade class, and I discovered this in there. And then apparently my first grade teacher, who was from Florida, her son was like a big NASCAR fan growing up and then didn't want his cars anymore. Why would you get rid of them? I don't know. I don't know why I would ever get rid of diecasts, but it ended up in my hands. I have a couple others from back in the day too, but this was always one of my favorites. Chad Little, very random driver, pretty much sucked in his Roush tenure. If you look at the stats, that's why Kurt Busch ultimately replaced him in the 97, but that is our diecast of the week, and we will be mixing these in throughout the year on Mondays, but this has always been one of my favorites. My second ever diecast I ever got, 97 Mark. Chad
I actually have the same one.
We ask what the first one is, or
Yes.
say that?
Nice.
Should we ask what the first diecast is, or is that going to be another segment down the line? Do you have your first diecast, Eddie?
I do.
Oh,
We could, yes. That'll make an appearance in a couple of weeks.
okay.
I was gonna ask, this may sound out of left field, and this may sound a little, dare I say, on stream autistic, but how do I put it like this? It's very interesting how the sound of a diecast stands out from the rest of them, because it's like I knew you were holding a diecast, not because of the segment. Like I could literally hear like the wheels, I guess you could say, going. It's just like it makes a distinct noise. That's how I knew it stood out. It's like it's very interesting how diecast makes certain
Whatever
noises.
undiagnosed OCD I have is why I have been playing with this car for the last couple of months. So I've been giving some ASMR during this whole conversation because I've been rolling the front wheels since like 725.
The quality of diecasts have gone down over time. So is this like the metal bottom, or is this plastic? Like
Yes, I'm glad you asked that question. This is the heaviest 164 diecast I have because it's fully metal. Like this thing is such good quality, and it's so disappointing that the diecasts are just a shell of quite literally.
At least you didn't, you got it handed to you. You didn't have to wait like 6 months or a year after, the car got released to, finally get it from some die-cast company like Lionel, I'm just saying, not to
I'm just glad
do it
that
a little bit here,
this segment
but
finally shows the extent of our social lives.
Yes. Yes. So just wait. We are going to have this every Monday throughout 2026. But that is my diecast. But I want to wrap up with something because we do have live racing this week. In fact, tonight Kyle Larson is going to be ripping around Tulsa, the defending Chili Bowl Nationals champion. If you don't know, Chili Bowl, big event every year. Kind of took a little bit of a hit a couple of years ago because they didn't have enough prize money. So Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, some other big names chose not to participate in 2024. Then they got some funding. They all came back, and now they have a lot of funding because, I don't know how it took so long, but now Chili's is the official sponsor of the Chili Bowl. So that's big. So somebody's going to be riding the Dente this weekend. 3 of the last 4 years, it hasn't been a NASCAR guy. It's been a dirt racing purist that's won. Logan Seavey won back-to-back. Thorson the year before, but Kyle Larson's won, I believe, 4. Christopher Bell has won it before, but it always seems to come down when they're both in it, Tropper, to Kyle Larson versus Christopher Bell, and it's a fun battle because, frankly, we don't get it that often in NASCAR. We get Larson versus Denny Hamlin more often than Larson versus Christopher Bell, but as good as they are in NASCAR, their bread and butter is the dirt tracks, and the Chili Bowl is such a weird event indoors in like this convention center. There's like 30 flips in the week. Kyle Larson like almost flipped while leading last year and then just still kept on going. But you get these awesome battles, and Larson and Christopher Bell probably going to be going toe to toe on Saturday night.
But yeah, 100%. I can't really speak on it too much because I've never actually watched the full Chili Bowl. I don't know the ins and outs of a lot of dirt racing as much as I hate to admit. But what I do know is that Bell and Larson obviously have those dirt racing roots, and they are among the best of the best at it. So you'd be crazy to think that there's not going to be a good battle between them, or at least that even if they don't go head to head at some point, one of them will be up at the front when it's all said and done, making the case for the win.
Yeah. Going to be a lot.
I was just going to say real quickly, historically speaking, every time Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell jokingly have some sort of quote unquote dirt beef, it never ends well for one of them. And it's not because they're wrecking each other. It's something happens and they just never get to actually race for the win. And I'm going to make my bold pick, which is not going to happen, but I'm going to sarcastically make it anyways. Santino Ferrucci is going to win the Chili Bowl this year. Just you wait.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned him because I have this tweet pulled up from Bob Pockris. Bob doing the Lord's work here. He basically broke down because if you don't know the Chili Bowl, it's 5 days of qualifiers, and the whole field, it's literally like 400 drivers, is split into 5 groups. They have these qualifiers, and then they're seeded, and then they have all of these main events that start with like the N main, and then it's all the way through the alphabet to the A main. And if you win your race, like in the main, you advance to the next one. So if you keep winning and winning and winning, you keep on going as long as you can during the day. There's been some miraculous runs, so the Saturday is always a lot of fun. But in terms of the qualifying days, the key drivers today is Kyle Larson and Dylan Welch, the pit reporter for CW, son of Vince Welch. He's in it today. Tomorrow is Ty Gibbs, Sheldon Creed, and Tim's favorite driver and his best friend, JJ Yaley.
Attaboy!
Yes.
Let's go, JJ.
Wednesday, Jesse Love and Corey Day. Thursday, Christopher Bell and Josh Bilicki. And Friday, as you mentioned, Mr. Ferrucci, Santino Ferrucci will be...
Interesting, by the way. No Stenhouse this year,
I was just going to say.
Yes.
I say Stenhouse usually... Well, I can't speak of the last year, to be honest with you, because I did not watch the Chili Bowl last year, to be honest with you.
He did race last year.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Okay. I say him and what Justin Allgaier typically does, no?
I don't think Allgaier raced last year.
Yeah.
I think Kyle... Did Kyle Busch race last year?
Kyle Busch did it last year, but he got eliminated pretty early.
He probably flipped like everyone else.
Yeah, probably.
But I am a big dirt racing purist. I wouldn't say like I'm the biggest one, but like within the past, I want to say 7 to 8 months since I got Flow Racing, I've been watching it and like I've really been getting into it. So I did watch.
What would you call it instead of knowing wheel? Is it knowing mud? Is it knowing dirt?
I'm slinging dirt.
Yeah, you're
slinging mud.
Slinging mud. But yeah, this Chili Bowl is gonna be really cool. It's gonna be great as usual. I completely forgot that Larson almost did flip over, and they called a caution for it, and he kept going and ended up winning. It was awesome. But yeah, honestly, the qualifying days, if you guys could all watch that, I mean, man, that is awesome. There's like a flip like every race, and the racing is really good. And like you said, Eddie, it's such a bizarre event. It's in an expo center, and then like after the races end, they show a shot of like the rest of the expo center. You just got people walking around. There's trailers inside this expo center. There's just like this looming smoke on the inside, like of exhaust. It's crazy. It's a great event. And yeah, I think it is going to come down to Bell and Larson again. Um, Hard to say who's going to win. I say JJ Yaley's going to take it this year though, but no, I think Larson might win his fifth one this year. I kind of see it
I
happening.
hope JJ Yaley has a funded ride. That's
Well, typically,
Maybe
if I remember,
Maybe
typically he
race the
doesn't
Wawa
make it
car again,
beyond.
Eddie.
JJ doesn't usually make it beyond the D. So that's
run that one back
historically
since
speaking.
pause. Anyway.
Yeah, well, either way, it's going to be a very fun week of races. And I'll put it like this, regardless of who makes it or whatever, just the fact that if you even have a chance to even race in, let's say, a C-Main, and you're not in a high-funded ride, I mean, it means a lot to people. And I do want to say this real quick, too. For years, I really want people, if you're in the chat or see this later in the comment section, I want to know if you've ever been to a chili bowl, and I want to know, do they serve chili there, and is it good? Because, like, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, how do you call it the chili bowl and not have good chili? Now, obviously, now it's sponsored by Chili's, but, I mean, come on now. Like, if it's not good, then why you call it the chili bowl? That's the real question.
Does Chili's even serve chili?
I was just about to say that we're gonna go down a slippery slope. Does Chili's even sell chili? That's what I want.
I don't know. And the
Well,
other
you
thing
were the
too
one that
is
went
if you
on a
want to,
Motorsports Today trip. Colin rode the
yeah,
jet.
but Colin wants to ride the Dente. I don't drink, so
Well,
like
what was
I
your
rode
order?
I think it was
Not
the
chili.
strawberry watermelon
No.
lemonade. I only went once like recently, but the strawberry watermelon lemonade was really good. So
That is
that's
the
why I'm riding the
most
Dente, non-alcoholic
proper
drink for you,
beverage
Tim.
that I've ever heard.
I'll say I'm a honey chipotle chicken crisper guy. And everybody did the triple dipper too when we were in Iowa.
Yeah,
that was
triple dipper's good.
really funny. And they messed up my triple dipper somehow, which I don't even know how. Not as bad though. They didn't forget something. They just gave me the wrong item. I'm like, Wawa forgetting my chicken.
Yes. I will battle for Wawa until the day I die. I still have some Wawa lemonades in my fridge right now, and I haven't been to Jersey in a month.
Tipton says, I think it's JJ's year to get into the A main and get a top 5. Hopefully,
In the Wawa
we'll
car?
see.
Please tell me Wawa's sponsoring him like they did
No,
at Darlington.
he's
Bro,
definitely
there is
not.
no Wawa within 1,000 miles of Oklahoma. I highly doubt.
And I'm going to say another loss. Granted, I think it's because he's too tall to sit in the midgets, but like Carson Hocevar's not racing this, and that's the Chili's guy. You can't put Chili's on another car and, not it be Carson Hocevar, in my opinion. He's made it iconic enough to this point in a short time he's had it. So, like, I don't know. That's just how I feel about it.
I think he'll find a way into that eventually. He will do anything. I saw the video of him and John Hunter Nemechek racing like Zambonis or something at some minor league hockey.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was funny. But
Did you guys see Kevin Harvick was on the NFL broadcast the other day?
oh yeah, because
Yeah.
all the NASCAR faithful are Panthers fans.
But they showed Keelan's late model in the Hall of Fame.
Well, because Keelan Harvick is him. Just you wait.
Yeah.
Keelan Harvick, no matter what format, Chase, playoffs, he's going to be winning the Cup championship in 5 years.
Yeah, the future rivalry in the next, 20 years will be, Keelan Harvick and Braxton Bush battling for the
There you go.
championship. Just saying it.
And Austin Dillon.
Austin Dillon will never go away. I agree.
On that note, we are going to go away because it's been an hour, and that's going to wrap up this Monday edition of Motorsports Today, our first episode of 2026. Reminder, powered by SeatGeek. Use the code MToday, all caps, one word, $20 off your first purchase. Every episode archived, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Find us at Motorsports Today on YouTube, Spotify, and the socials. Find us on the web, too, at motorsportstoday.net. We will be back on Friday working on getting Stephen Malazzi to get his reaction to the new Chase returning to NASCAR in 2026, so stay tuned for that. But for Adam Tropper, Tim Moore, Tyrell Baker, I'm Eddie Kalegi, signing off with this episode of Motorsports Today. The Chase is back, and we will be back on Friday.
Go Steelers.